How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another video. In this one, we're going over why your Facebook ads aren't working and what we can do to fix them. With that being said, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a like on the channel and hit subscribe. We're releasing new content like this every week that'll help you grow your business, and super valuable content. I try to put a lot of work into what I put here, so leave a like. That definitely helps us reach more people. And let's go ahead and get into why your Facebook ads don't work. So this is something I got from Dr. Tyler Coles. I service primarily orthodontists within my agency, and he identified three things that, usually when a campaign doesn't work, it's because one of these three things were off. And the first one is goals. So somebody can run a Facebook ad and say, my goal is to get new patients into my orthodontic clinic, or my goal is to get more people into my restaurant, something like that. But they haven't clearly defined what that means and how many people they would like to start, or how many people they would like to come into the restaurant. So the goal of your campaign is a very important place to start. You want to know how many people you want to bring in, at what price point, so that you can know if you succeeded. Begin with the end in mind. Secondly is targeting. So Facebook makes this super easy. If your targeting's off, you can just go watch any of the other videos on my channel. I'll tell you what to do for targeting, and it's really not that difficult with Facebook. On other mediums, maybe like a billboard or a magazine, I could see this being really difficult, but digitally you're only reaching the people that you tell Facebook or Google or whatever platform you're using, I want these people to see my ads. So that shouldn't be too difficult. What I find most of the time is that this last one, content, is the thing that needs to do most of the heavy lifting, and which most people don't get right because it's the hardest part. So goals are pretty simple. Usually somebody knows what they want to do. Targeting is also simple, but content is the thing that will make your ads suffer if you don't do it right. So with that said, let's talk about something called the BJ Fogg behavior model. This is a professor, his name was BJ Fogg, and he came up with this model to explain how people behave and why they behave. It's just like a simple way of talking about human behavior. And something that you should understand if you're trying to market is that marketing is just dealing with human nature at scale. So if you understand the human condition, you're going to be a good marketer. But if you don't, then you're not going to be a good marketer. So this is just basic fundamental human nature. And the more I find that I study human nature, the better I become at marketing, because we know how to play into the biases. We know how to motivate someone to do something they wouldn't otherwise do, and we understand human nature. So here on the left side of the screen, behavior equals motivation times ability times trigger. So if a behavior doesn't happen, it's because one of these things didn't happen. Either there wasn't enough motivation, there wasn't enough ability, or perceived ability, or there wasn't a trigger. And in our case, the ad that we're doing is this trigger right here. That's very simple. The motivation and the ability is not totally in our control, but we also control through the trigger how the motivation and ability of something is perceived to a particular customer. So let's take a look at this graph. On the y-axis we have motivation, and on the x-axis we have ability. So high motivation plus low ability, you might be able to get somebody to do that if that's very high motivation, and then depending on how low the ability or the perceived ability is. And then on the flip side is if it's a high ability and there's a decent amount of motivation to do it, then that will probably get done if the trigger is in place. So this is like, if we had a dot map scattered here on this graph, all of the people that you're running your Facebook ads to would be on different sides of this line that we've drawn here. And your trigger comes in, and the people that are on one side of the line are just going to convert right away. There's people that'll they're ready to buy braces, or they're ready to go into your restaurant, or they're ready to buy whatever product or service you're offering. And when you put that trigger in front of them, it's immediate. They know what they want and they go and do it. But the majority of people are going to be on the other side of the line, where over here where there's low perceived ability, or there's not a very high motivation to do what you're asking them to do. And some people you're just not going to be able to move, and that's the reality of business. But these people that are close to the line, that's where your trigger comes in and can pull them over the line. Okay, so your job as the advertiser is to increase the perceived ability, decrease the difficulty of somebody doing something, and then increasing the motivation. So an example of decreasing the difficulty would be the very first time I ran an ad for an orthodontist. They wanted to run a click-to-call ad. So basically what that means is the ad would show up on their Facebook feed, or the person's Facebook feed, and then it would be prompting them to call the orthodontic office right away. So the difficulty of that action is pretty high because most people aren't ready for a phone call right now. Maybe they're just sitting in line waiting for their food. Maybe they're stopped at a stoplight. They don't want to call right away. So what we did instead was we changed it from a click-to-call ad to a click-to-messenger ad. So we decreased the difficulty of somebody, the barrier to entry of somebody communicating with this business by taking it from a phone call to a messaging conversation. And then here at the bottom, increasing the motivation. An example of this would be, well, I'm going to hop into some other examples right here. So getting braces and Invisalign. Let's look at a few different examples. So let's say this family, they just went to their dentist and the dentist said, your daughter has really, really bad teeth and there's no space for them to come in and she needs to get in braces right away or else she's going to have a lot of pain. She'll be in a lot of pain. So this family has a really high motivation to get to the orthodontist. And let's say they have a fairly low perceived difficulty because they're pretty well to do. It's not going to hurt their pocketbooks too much. So here, all you would have to do is just put a simple trigger in front of them and they'd probably choose you as long as your triggers tell them that they're going to the best orthodontist, or their daughter will be in the correct hands so that she can not be in pain and that her smile will turn out the way that they want it to as parents. So in an ad speaking to somebody like this, again, it wouldn't be too hard, but you'd be talking about how you can help people that don't have enough space in their mouth. Then they would know right away, oh, this is the orthodontist for us. They click on the ad and then they become a patient. So now let's look at this one. Let's say this guy is like 24. He wants to get braces or Invisalign. He has crooked teeth, but they're not too bad. It's just like a gap in the front. And, he just works like a minimum wage job and doesn't really have any savings. So he has a really high perceived difficulty because of the cost of braces or Invisalign. He knows that there's a big price tag on there, and he doesn't really have that high of a motivation to become an orthodontic patient because he's not that unhappy with his teeth. So eventually he'll get to a point where his motivation is really, really high, and you want to be in front of him before that so that he will convert eventually. But right now, this is kind of an example of somebody where it pays to be in front of them, but it's going to pay down the line, not right away. Okay, now let's talk about this lady. Let's say she's like 28. Her teeth, again, aren't that crooked, but she knows that she'd like to have braces at some point or Invisalign. And she has a really nice job. She doesn't have any kids. She's single, so she has enough money to pay for it out of pocket, and she's not worried about that. What you would need to speak to in your trigger or your ad here is motivation, not difficulty. So notice that. So if there was a high perceived difficulty here, what you'd be wanting to talk about in the ad is, hey, we make braces affordable for anybody who wants them. We don't want cost to stand in the way of a smile you love. And here we'd be talking about how a smile affects your work life, it affects your family life, it affects your self-image, that if you don't get it fixed, you won't have the same level of life quality. And these ads, we could run two similar ads, one for this guy, one for this avatar, let's say, and one for this avatar, and it's going to speak to one and not speak to the other, and vice versa. So now let's talk about meal delivery. Let's say the same lady, but this time she's not that well off. She doesn't have as much money, but she really needs to eat healthy because she has a health condition. So this meal delivery service is really healthy. It just delivers your food so that you don't have to think about cooking or buying food or anything like that, but it's pretty expensive. So her perceived difficulty is high because it's expensive, but she has a very high motivation because of her health condition. She knows that she needs to eat healthy. So in your ad, you'd be talking about expense and how you want to make it affordable for everyone, and you'd be offering a discount. whereas it would be different if you were looking at a different avatar. Okay, and this last one here, let's say this guy's an orthodontist and he's looking for a marketing agency. This is one I run into a lot, so I thought I'd throw it in here. Orthodontists see this high perceived difficulty because there's so many people out there who really don't know what they're doing in the marketing space and they've been burned in the past. And so the perceived difficulty of finding the right marketing agency is really, really high. But let's say this specific orthodontist, he just started his practice. He has a really high motivation to try it because he needs his business to grow. So I would speak to him about the perceived difficulty by maybe offering a guarantee or offering a free trial, or just talking to him about past case studies of how successful the campaigns we've run have been and how we know that they can be successful for him as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Really, like we talked about at the beginning, if we go back here, these are the 3 things that you need to focus on. Goals and targeting really aren't that hard, but content is what's going to do the heavy lifting. If you don't put the right content in front of the right audience, it's not going to work. And all 3 of these have to be in place, yes, but the content is the most difficult one to get correct. So make sure that you use this BJ Fogg behavioral model to build your ads around them, create avatars, and really just seek to understand human behavior and what causes people to do certain things. And then just do everything you can to increase motivation and increase perceived ability, as well as decrease the friction that somebody has to go through in order to become one of your customers. And if you do that, I promise you that your triggers are going to work amazingly well. There's a reason that Facebook is a multi-billion-dollar company. It's because there are a lot of people that can run profitable Facebook ads, and you are not the exception. I promise you that you can figure out how to run profitable Facebook ads. It's just going to take some testing and tweaking and learning on your part. I hope this will help you shortcut that process. And thanks for watching. Again, please leave a like on this video if you liked it and share it with someone who might need it. Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.